Alex was a boy who lived in a small, quiet neighborhood where everyone knew each other. He was not like the other kids at school. His clothes were old, and his shoes had holes, but he never let that make him sad. He was small and quiet, often staying in the background during school events. While the other children laughed and played loudly in the playground, Alex preferred to sit in a corner, watching the world around him. He liked to notice things others missed. The way sunlight hit the pavement in the morning, how birds chirped in different patterns, and the small details of people's faces when they smiled or frowned. From a young age, Alex had loved music. He didn't have a piano at home, only a small keyboard he had saved for months to buy with his little allowance. Every day, after finishing his chores and homework, he would sit at the keyboard and play. His fingers learned the keys slowly, but over time, they began to dance across them with ease. Music made Alex feel alive. When he played, the world around him disappeared. He didn't think about what other people thought, or about the teasing he sometimes faced. Music was his friend, his escape, and his joy. At school, life was not always easy for Alex. Some children were mean to him, not in big, obvious ways, but in small, hurtful ways that added up. They would whisper about his old clothes or the way he spoke softly. Sometimes they would make jokes during class or giggle when he tried to answer a question. Teachers often overlooked him, assuming he would not participate in activities or perform well. Despite all this, Alex stayed quiet and focused on what he loved. He never let the teasing make him angry or bitter. Inside, he held a confidence that was private, a belief that one day his efforts and talent would be recognized. One morning, the school announced a talent show. Excitement filled the classrooms as students talked about what they would do. Some would sing, others would dance, and a few would perform magic tricks. Alex's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to play the piano, but he was nervous. What if no one liked his music? What if they laughed at him in front of everyone? He thought about it carefully, then remembered how he felt when he played alone at home. The music made him happy and free. That was all that mattered. So he decided to participate. The days before the talent show were filled with practice. Alex spent every spare moment perfecting his performance. He learned new songs and tried to play them flawlessly. Sometimes he made mistakes, but he kept going. He didn't tell anyone at school that he was practicing. If the other kids had known, they might have laughed or tried to challenge him. He wanted to surprise everyone. The more he practiced, the more confident he became. The music was flowing through him, and he felt ready to share it with the world. When the day of the talent show arrived, Alex felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He wore his best, though still simple, clothes and walked to the school auditorium. Inside, the room was buzzing with noise. Children laughed and shouted, parents chatted, and teachers tried to keep order. Alex stayed near the back, quietly watching the performers before him. Some of the acts were good, some were funny, and some were a bit messy. The audience clapped politely, but Alex noticed how some students still made fun of those who seemed different or didn't perform perfectly. Finally, it was Alex's turn. He walked onto the stage slowly, carrying a small smile. Some children snickered when they saw him. They whispered, "Look at him. He thinks he can play the piano, and he's just a poor boy. This will be funny." A few teachers looked at him and raised their eyebrows, doubting that his performance would be memorable. Alex heard some of the whispers, but he didn't let them bother him. He took a deep breath, walked to the piano and sat down. The room grew quiet as everyone waited to see what he would do. Alex placed his fingers on the keys, feeling the cool surface beneath them. For a moment, he closed his eyes, remembering all the hours he had spent practicing, the songs he had learned, and the emotions he wanted to share. Then, slowly, he pressed the first note. It was soft, almost hesitant, but it was there. The sound filled the auditorium. Some students whispered, expecting it to be clumsy, but the note was clear and precise. Alex continued to play, each note flowing smoothly into the next. The music had a gentle power, pulling at something inside everyone listening. As Alex played, the whispers began to fade. The laughter that had filled the room earlier disappeared. Children stopped moving, parents leaned forward, and teachers watched closely. No one could look away from the music. Every note told a story of patience, struggle, and quiet determination. The melody was simple but beautiful, full of feeling. Alex's fingers moved with confidence, and for the first time that day, he felt completely in control. The music was no longer just his private escape. It was speaking to the entire room. Some of the children who had mocked him earlier began to feel a strange mix of surprise and admiration. They had expected a poor performance, but instead, they were hearing something incredible. Alex was not just playing the piano. He was telling his story through music. The shy boy in old clothes, who had been laughed at, was now capturing everyone's attention. The teachers nodded quietly, impressed by his skill and the emotion he put into every note. The performance was not just about talent. It was about heart, and that heart was visible to everyone who was listening. By the time Alex finished the first few songs he had prepared, the room was completely silent. No one moved, no one whispered. All eyes were on him, not with judgment, but with amazement. The boy who had always stayed in the background had become the center of attention without even trying. His music had done something that words could not. It had stopped the room, made everyone pause, and made them listen. Alex opened his eyes and smiled softly, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. He had shared his passion, and it had been received in a way he had never imagined. After the performance, the applause started slowly but grew louder with every clap. Students who had mocked him now looked embarrassed but impressed. Some of the teachers came forward to congratulate him. Alex felt a warmth in his chest that he had never felt before. He realized that sometimes people judge too quickly, and that talent and dedication can shine through even in the most unexpected places. The shy boy with worn clothes had shown everyone that what truly matters is what is inside, not what is visible on the outside. That day, Alex learned a valuable lesson about himself. He had faced his fears, ignored the mocking voices, and shared what he loved with courage. For the first time, he felt seen not just for who he was on the outside, but for his heart, his skill, and his dedication. And for the audience, it was a reminder that sometimes the quietest people have the most powerful stories to tell. As Alex stood by the piano, the laughter and whispers from the students felt like tiny needles prickling his skin. Some of the older kids pointed at him, smirking, and muttered things like, "He really thinks he can play?" Or, "This will be the funniest part of the show." Even a few of his classmates who usually stayed neutral couldn't hide their curiosity. They leaned forward slightly, expecting a mess, ready to snicker at the first wrong note. The teachers gave small, polite nods, but there was doubt in their eyes. They had seen many students try and fail before. It was almost a tradition that the audience expected a little chaos from the quieter students who dared to perform. Alex could feel the tension in the room, but instead of fear, it sparked determination in him. He remembered all the times he had practiced alone at home, sometimes in the dark with only the dim light of his small lamp. He remembered the long evenings when he had skipped playing outside just to perfect a difficult piece. Every note he had learned, every chord he had practiced over and over, was for this moment. He sat down on the piano bench, straightened his back, and took a deep breath. The first few notes he played were soft, almost delicate. They seemed to float in the air, quiet but confident. The laughter from some students began to fade as they listened more carefully. Some of them tilted their heads, surprised by the clarity and precision of the music. A few parents in the audience leaned forward, curious about the boy who had everyone whispering. Even some of the students who had been mocking him stopped moving and listened in silence. As the music continued, Alex's fingers moved faster, more confidently. The song he had chosen was not just a display of skill. It was full of emotion. Every note carried something. The struggles he had faced, the quiet determination that had kept him going, and the joy he felt whenever he played. The melody was gentle but powerful, and it wrapped around the audience without them even realizing it. There was something in the music that made people stop thinking about anything else and just listen. Some of the children who had mocked him felt their cheeks heat up. They had expected a poor performance, maybe even something that would make the audience laugh at him. Instead, They were hearing something unexpected, something beautiful. It was not loud or flashy, but it was perfect. The boy they had laughed at had skill that they could not deny. One by one, the whispers of mocking faded, replaced with quiet murmurs of surprise. Even the teachers exchanged glances, clearly impressed by his talent and the emotion he poured into the music. The middle of the piece was the most powerful part. Alex leaned slightly forward, his eyes closed, fully absorbed in the music. He did not notice the audience anymore. He was lost in the melody. The piano seemed like an extension of himself, his fingers telling a story that words could never express. The students, parents, and teachers who had once doubted him now sat in complete silence. No one moved, no one whispered. The music was stronger than their previous judgments or expectations. It had a calm, almost magical effect on everyone in the room. Some of the students felt a strange feeling they had not expected. They realized they had judged Alex too quickly. His worn clothes, his quiet demeanor, his simple appearance, none of it mattered. What mattered was the heart and skill he put into his music. A few students even felt a little ashamed for their earlier mocking. They had been ready to laugh at him, but now they could only sit and admire the boy who had quietly taken over the stage with his talent. Parents and teachers started to exchange small smiles. Some whispered to each other, expressing their amazement. "He's so talented," one said softly. "I didn't expect this at all," another added. The music had broken through the barriers of expectation, reaching the hearts of everyone listening. Alex continued, fully absorbed, giving everything he had practiced and dreamed about. Every note was confident, and every pause carried emotion. The story he told with the piano was clear to all, a story of resilience and hope that needed no words. As the song reached its final section, the room felt like it was holding its breath. Even those who had been the loudest mockers sat frozen, unable to move. Alex's fingers flew across the keys in a mix of speed and precision, yet every note was controlled. The energy in the music built steadily, not in a chaotic way, but in a way that demanded attention. Everyone could feel the boy's determination, his years of practice, and his inner strength through each chord. It was a performance that drew in every person present, a moment that made everyone forget everything else. Then came the last notes. Alex played them slowly, with care, letting each one ring in the air before moving to the next. The final chord echoed in the auditorium, leaving a moment of stunned silence. For a few seconds, no one moved or clapped. It was as if time had stopped, allowing everyone to take in the sheer beauty of what they had just witnessed. The boy who had been laughed at, mocked, and doubted had just performed a piece that silenced an entire room. His music had spoken louder than any words or judgments. Finally, the silence was broken. The clapping started softly at first, then grew louder and louder. Some students stood up, cheering and clapping their hands. Parents gave enthusiastic applause, some even wiping away a tear. Teachers approached Alex with smiles and praise, telling him how extraordinary his performance had been. Those who had mocked him earlier now looked embarrassed, realizing they had misjudged him. Alex smiled humbly, not because of the applause, but because he had shared something important about himself and had touched others with his music. After the performance, Alex walked off the stage with a calm satisfaction. He knew that what he had done was more than just playing the piano. He had proven that talent and heart could not be measured by looks, clothes, or status. The boy who had been mocked had become the center of admiration. The students who had whispered and laughed learned an important lesson. Judging someone by their appearance or background is never fair. Alex's performance showed them that real skill and dedication always shine through. The rest of the day, students and teachers talked about his performance. Many came to him, congratulating him and asking him how he had learned to play so well. Even some of the children who had mocked him before apologized quietly, feeling embarrassed and inspired at the same time. Alex accepted their words with a kind smile, understanding that sometimes people only needed to see proof to change their minds. That evening, Alex returned home and sat quietly at his small keyboard. He played a few soft notes, thinking about the day. Even though the applause and praise were wonderful, the music itself was what mattered most to him. It had been the music that told his story, captured the attention of everyone, and showed the world what he was capable of. The boy who had been mocked had grown stronger that day, not just because of the recognition, but because he had shared his passion without fear. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning of many performances to come. As the music continued to flow from the piano, Alex felt a calm focus settle over him. The room, once buzzing with laughter and whispers, had become quiet. Every person present seemed to hang on each note, as if the sound could carry them to another place entirely. He had entered the performance thinking only of the music, but he was beginning to realize its effect on the audience. Even the students who had been mocking him earlier were now sitting in stunned silence, unable to look away. Alex's fingers moved confidently across the keys. Each chord was deliberate, yet carried emotion that could not be taught. He played not to impress, not to prove anything, but because the music came from a place deep within him. Every note told a story of his struggles, the quiet hours spent practicing alone, and the joy he had discovered in melodies. The audience could feel it, even if they did not know his story. It was a kind of communication that went beyond words, reaching hearts directly. The middle section of the song was particularly moving. Alex had practiced this part more than any other, working to make sure every note flowed naturally into the next. It began softly, a gentle melody that rose slowly, building emotion with every passing moment. The quiet hum of anticipation in the audience grew as the music became richer and more complex. Parents and teachers leaned forward, noticing the subtle dynamics and the careful control Alex maintained throughout. It was clear to them that this boy had invested years of dedication into mastering his craft. Alex's eyes were closed as he played, lost entirely in the rhythm and the melody. He felt each note, each pause, as if they were alive and breathing along with him. Outside the music, the world had faded. The whispers and the mocking laughter that had tried to invade his mind before had no power here. He was free. He was speaking, telling a story that had no words but carried the weight of his heart. Among the students, some felt a rush of surprise and shame. They had come expecting to see a clumsy performance, a moment they could laugh at, but instead, they were witnessing something extraordinary. Their eyes widened as they followed the movement of Alex's fingers, realizing that the boy they had ridiculed had something they did not. Some of them even glanced at each other, exchanging looks of astonishment, recognizing silently that they had been wrong to judge him. The teachers watched closely, impressed not only by his technical skill but by the emotional depth of the performance. They could see that Alex's playing was not just about hitting the right keys. It was about conveying a story. Every rise and fall in the melody carried meaning. Every delicate touch, every loud chord, was deliberate, expressing feelings that could not be spoken aloud. Even those who rarely paid attention to the quieter students were captivated. Alex had transformed from an overlooked boy into the center of attention through his music alone. The tempo of the piece began to shift slightly, increasing in intensity without becoming chaotic. Alex's fingers moved faster, yet each note was precise, controlled, and filled with emotion. The audience could feel the build-up, a kind of tension in the music that demanded attention. It was as if the room had entered into a shared experience, breathing and feeling along with each chord. The students who had mocked him earlier now found themselves holding their breath, caught between disbelief and admiration. They had not expected this level of skill or passion. Alex's performance reached a point where the music carried both strength and vulnerability at the same time. It was not loud or flashy, but it commanded respect and drew every listener in. The sound of the piano filled the auditorium completely, leaving no space for distractions. It was impossible to ignore the story unfolding through the notes. Even the most skeptical audience members, who had assumed the boy would fail, now watched in quiet awe. The music had captured their attention and their emotions, bridging the gap between doubt and belief. Every subtle pause, every rising scale, and every carefully placed chord added layers to the performance. Alex had learned to play with intention, to make the music speak for itself. The audience could feel the years of practice behind each movement, the dedication and passion that had driven him to this moment. It was more than just a piano performance. It was a revelation. The boy who had been mocked was now showing the depth of his talent, and it was undeniable. As the final section of the middle part approached, Alex felt a sense of unity with the audience. They were listening, fully present, and he could sense their emotions as he played. It was a connection he had never experienced before, and it filled him with calm confidence. Every note he played seemed to echo through the room, leaving an impression that could not be erased. The students who had tried to ridicule him earlier were now silent, their earlier laughter replaced with awe and respect. For Alex, the music was both personal and public. It was his private language, shared in a way that everyone could understand. He did not play for applause or recognition. He played because the music was part of him. Yet, he could see that it was touching the hearts of everyone present. The parents, the teachers, and the students were all responding to the emotions he conveyed. It was a moment of quiet triumph, a proof that his dedication had not been wasted. The piece slowed slightly toward the end of the middle section, drawing the audience into a reflective silence. Each note lingered in the air, allowing the listeners to absorb the feeling behind it. Alex's control over the dynamics of the song was evident. He knew exactly when to hold a note, when to soften, and when to increase intensity. It was a mastery that could only come from years of patient practice and an understanding of music as a language of emotion. By the time the middle section ended, the audience was completely captivated. The boy who had been mocked was no longer just a student on stage. He was a storyteller, an artist, a young musician who had earned their attention through skill, passion, and heart. The energy in the room had shifted. The whispers of ridicule were gone, replaced with admiration and wonder. Teachers nodded to each other, impressed not only by his technical ability, but by the emotional depth he had conveyed. The students, parents, and staff were all experiencing a moment that would stay with them long after the talent show ended. Alex opened his eyes briefly, noticing the expressions of surprise and respect on the faces around him. He did not pause or slow down. The music was still flowing naturally. The audience was listening, completely absorbed, and he felt a sense of pride and fulfillment that went beyond words. He had faced the mocking and judgment of others and turned it into an opportunity to show his true talent. The piano had become his voice, telling a story of quiet strength, patience, and the power of persistence. As he moved into the next section of the song, the audience remained silent, fully engaged in the performance. Alex could see that the impact of his music was growing with each passing note. The students who had previously doubted him now watched with wide eyes, realizing that appearances could be deceiving. He had transformed from a boy who could be overlooked into the focal point of attention. The music had done what words could not. It had shifted the perception of everyone in the room. The final moments of this part of the performance were soft, tender, and moving. Alex allowed each note to resonate, creating a sense of calm and reflection. The audience sat in quiet appreciation, fully aware of the effort, emotion, and talent behind each sound. Even those who had tried to dismiss him could not deny the beauty and power of what they were hearing. It was a moment of pure connection, a shared experience that bound the performer and the listeners together through music. When this section ended, there was a brief pause. The room was still silent, as if everyone was afraid to break the spell that Alex's performance had created. Then, slowly, the audience began to breathe again, realizing the depth of what they had just witnessed. The boy who had been mocked had not only played the piano, he had stopped the room, captured their hearts, and shown them the power of talent, dedication, and quiet determination. Alex smiled softly, knowing that the music had spoken for him, and that his story had been heard by everyone present. As Alex continued to play, the atmosphere in the auditorium had completely changed. The initial laughter and mocking whispers were gone, replaced by a heavy silence that hung in the air. Every note he struck seemed to echo, filling not just the room but touching the hearts of everyone present. It was as though the music had created a bubble around the stage, separating it from all outside distractions. Students, Teachers and parents alike were holding their breath, captivated by the boy who had once been overlooked and ridiculed. Alex's fingers moved with a natural grace and confidence that came only from years of practice and dedication. He had learned to anticipate every note, to feel the flow of the melody before his fingers even touched the keys. Each chord was played with intention, each pause carefully measured to allow the music to speak for itself. There was power in his performance, but it was the emotion behind it that held everyone's attention. This was not just skill. This was a story being told through sound. The students who had been mocking him earlier could hardly believe what they were hearing. They had expected a clumsy, awkward performance, something that could be laughed at or dismissed. Instead, they were witnessing something extraordinary. The boy in old clothes, quiet and reserved, was commanding the room with his music. Some of them leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide, unable to tear their gaze away from him. Others sat back, mouths slightly open, stunned into silence by the beauty and depth of the performance. Even the teachers were moved. They had seen many students perform over the years, some talented, some not so much, but Alex's performance was different. It was not just about technical ability. It was about feeling, expression, and the courage to share something personal in front of an audience. They exchanged quiet glances, impressed by the control he had over the piano and the emotion he poured into each note. One teacher whispered to another, "I didn't expect this at all. He's incredible." Alex closed his eyes and allowed the music to guide him. He was lost in the melody, feeling each note as if it were part of his own heartbeat. He did not see the audience, did not hear their whispers or applause yet. All he knew was the music and the story he wanted to tell through it. It was a story of patience, persistence, and the quiet strength that comes from pursuing something you love despite obstacles. Each note carried meaning, and the audience could feel it even without knowing the full story behind the boy on stage. The melody grew richer and more complex as the performance progressed. Alex had designed this part to showcase both his skill and the depth of emotion he could convey. His fingers danced across the keys, producing sounds that were at once delicate and powerful. The room was completely absorbed, and even the most skeptical students could not look away. Their earlier judgments had been replaced with awe. They had been ready to laugh, but now they were learning a lesson about the dangers of judging someone too quickly. Parents in the audience exchanged looks of surprise and admiration. Some whispered to each other about how talented the boy was, while others simply sat back, allowing the music to wash over them. A few parents even wiped their eyes, feeling the emotion in the performance touch them deeply. The music was not just notes. It was a bridge connecting everyone in the room to Alex's experience, making them feel what he had felt in those long hours of practice and solitude. As Alex moved into the more dramatic part of the piece, the energy in the room shifted. The music became more intense, demanding attention, yet still maintained a beauty and precision that captivated everyone. Students who had been distracted earlier sat forward, unable to tear their eyes away. Teachers watched intently, noting the control, timing, and expression in each movement. Even those who had doubted him initially could not ignore the sheer mastery of his performance. It was impossible to deny that this boy had something rare, something that went beyond talent. It was heart, determination, and courage combined. The crescendo of the music approached, and Alex's fingers moved faster, yet with perfect control. Each chord seemed to resonate not just in the room, but in the hearts of those listening. The students who had once mocked him now felt a mix of admiration and humility. They had underestimated him, and the realization was both humbling and enlightening. This was not just a piano performance. It was a revelation, showing that appearances could be deceiving and that talent often hides in the most unexpected places. Alex could feel the connection with the audience growing stronger. Their silence, their rapt attention, was a powerful affirmation of the story he was telling through music. He did not need words or gestures. The piano was speaking for him. Every note carried the weight of his dedication, the struggles he had faced, and the quiet determination that had driven him forward. The audience could feel it, and their responses were reflected in their complete stillness, their focused gazes, and their emotional engagement. As the dramatic section reached its peak, Alex's music conveyed both triumph and vulnerability. There was a sense of tension, anticipation, and release all at once. The audience was caught in the spell, completely immersed in the story unfolding through the piano. Even those who had been skeptical or dismissive found themselves swept away by the emotion and precision of the performance. Alex's music had stopped the room, demanding that everyone pay attention, listen carefully, and feel deeply. The final part of this section was soft, tender, and reflective. Alex allowed each note to linger, giving the audience time to absorb the beauty and meaning behind the performance. Parents, teachers, and students alike were touched, some moved to tears by the sincerity and depth of the music. The boy who had once been mocked had become the center of attention, not through arrogance or showiness, but through authenticity and talent. His performance had transformed the atmosphere, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. Alex opened his eyes briefly, noticing the expressions of awe and respect in the faces around him. He smiled softly, feeling a sense of fulfillment. The applause was yet to come, but the reaction of the audience told him that he had succeeded in communicating his story through music. The students who had mocked him earlier had learned a quiet lesson. Talent and heart cannot be judged by appearances or wealth. They had been reminded that courage and dedication often go unseen until they are revealed through action. Even as the music continued, the energy in the room remained focused on Alex. The audience was fully engaged, not thinking about anything else, completely immersed in the moment. Teachers noted the subtle dynamics, the emotional depth, and the technical precision, knowing that this was a rare performance they would remember for years. Parents were struck by the unexpected beauty and power of the music, realizing that the boy on stage had something special that could not be ignored. Alex felt a quiet satisfaction as he approached the end of this section. He had faced the ridicule, ignored the doubt, and channeled all his energy into the music. The result was a performance that had not only showcased his talent, but had touched the hearts of everyone present. The students who had once laughed now looked on with admiration, learning that true skill and dedication often come quietly, without fanfare, waiting for the right moment to shine. As the last notes of this part echoed through the room, a brief hush fell over the audience. The music had taken them on a journey, and they were still absorbing its impact. The boy who had been mocked had proven that passion and talent cannot be measured by appearances. Alex's performance had stopped the room, captivated everyone, and left a lasting impression. It was a moment of quiet triumph, a reminder that dedication, courage, and heart can transform perception and touch lives in ways that words alone cannot. As Alex reached the final section of his performance, the room seemed to hold its breath. Every note he played was deliberate, each pause carefully measured, and every chord carried emotion that transcended the music itself. The audience, completely absorbed, could feel the story unfolding before them. Parents leaned forward in their seats, some eyes glistening with tears, while students who had once mocked him now sat in stunned silence, unable to believe the skill and emotion that this quiet boy was displaying. Alex's fingers glided across the keys with both speed and precision, yet each note was imbued with feeling. The music was more than just sound. It was a conversation between him and the audience, a silent dialogue that spoke of years of practice, patience, and the quiet strength he had built in solitude. The room was silent except for the piano, every ear attuned to the melody that had transformed the atmosphere from one of doubt and mockery to awe and respect. The dramatic climax of the piece built slowly, like a story rising to its most critical moment. Alex's heart pounded in rhythm with the music, yet he remained composed, allowing his fingers to tell the story he had practiced for so long. Each note resonated with the struggles and triumphs of his journey, and the audience could feel it. Those who had been ready to laugh now felt the weight of their own assumptions, realizing how wrong they had been to judge him by his appearance or background. The tempo shifted, becoming both faster and more complex. Alex's fingers moved with confidence, striking chords that seemed impossible for someone so young and small. The audience was mesmerized. Students who had whispered and pointed at him before were now wide-eyed, their mouths slightly open in astonishment. Teachers exchanged glances, impressed not only by his technical ability, but by the depth of feeling he was able to convey through the piano. Parents whispered to one another, praising his skill and expressing their amazement at the unexpected performance. As the piece approached its finale, the energy in the room was palpable. Every listener was completely immersed, caught in the wave of emotion that Alex had created. The boy who had been mocked, underestimated, and overlooked had become the center of attention in the most profound way. His music spoke louder than words ever could, reminding everyone that talent and heart could not be measured by appearances. The performance was no longer just a display of skill. It was a revelation. Alex's hands moved effortlessly over the keys, his eyes occasionally opening to glance at the audience, seeing their captivated expressions. He felt a connection with them, a shared understanding of the emotions his music carried. This was the moment he had dreamed of, not for fame or recognition, but to share a piece of his heart, to show that the quiet, overlooked boy could rise and command attention through dedication and passion. Then came the final notes. Alex played them slowly, deliberately, letting each sound linger in the air. The room was so still that it felt like time itself had paused. The final chord echoed, filling every corner of the auditorium, and for a few heartbeats, there was complete silence. No one moved. No one whispered. The boy who had been mocked had not only performed a piano piece. He had stopped the room, captured everyone's attention, and left a lasting impression that would not be forgotten. And then the silence broke. The applause started slowly, tentative at first, but then grew rapidly as teachers, parents, and students realized the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Clapping filled the room, rising to a roar as people recognized the extraordinary performance. Some students jumped to their feet, cheering, while others clapped with wide-eyed amazement. Parents beamed, proud and moved by the depth of talent in the young boy they had watched perform. Teachers approached Alex, praising him for his skill, focus, and the emotion he had conveyed. The students who had mocked him earlier felt a mixture of shame and awe. They had underestimated him completely, and their laughter had been replaced with respect. Some whispered apologies to one another, while others quietly came forward to congratulate him. Alex accepted the praise with a humble smile, knowing that his performance had done more than earn applause. It had taught a lesson in humility, perseverance, and the power of talent hidden in unexpected places. The standing ovation continued, and Alex stood up from the piano, bowing slightly to the audience. His heart raced, not from nerves, but from the overwhelming feeling of accomplishment and connection. The room had been transformed by his music. What began as a moment of fear, uncertainty, and mockery had become a triumph of dedication, courage, and expression. The boy who had once been overlooked was now celebrated, not for showmanship or appearance, but for the undeniable depth of his talent and heart. After the applause, students approached Alex with curiosity and admiration. They asked him about the songs he had played, the hours he had practiced, and how he had managed to perform with such confidence. Teachers spoke to him about opportunities to further develop his musical talents, and parents offered encouragement and praise. The boy who had been mocked had not only won recognition for his performance, but had also inspired others to see beyond appearances and to value skill, dedication, and heart. Alex left the stage that day with a quiet pride. He knew that the applause and admiration were wonderful, but it was the act of sharing his passion and connecting with others through music that mattered most. The talent show had been more than just a performance. It had been a moment of transformation for everyone in the room. Students who had once ridiculed him learned to reconsider their judgments. Teachers and parents were reminded of the power of patience, dedication, and quiet talent. And Alex, the boy who had been mocked, had proven to himself and to the world that perseverance and heart could triumph over doubt and ridicule. That evening, Alex returned home and sat at his small keyboard, replaying some of the songs he had performed. He reflected on the day, the reactions of the audience, and the feelings that had arisen from sharing his music. The applause and praise were meaningful, but the true reward was the knowledge that he had communicated his story, touched hearts, and changed perceptions in a single performance. The experience had strengthened his belief in himself and his passion for music, proving that dedication and courage could turn mockery into admiration and doubt into recognition. After the applause had faded and the last notes of his performance lingered in the air, Alex stepped away from the piano with a sense of quiet pride. The auditorium was still buzzing with excitement and admiration. Students, teachers, and parents were talking among themselves, replaying the performance in their minds. What had started as a moment of doubt and mockery had transformed into a celebration of talent, heart, and perseverance. Alex walked off the stage, his chest full, knowing that he had done something meaningful and lasting. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at school had changed. Students who had once laughed at Alex approached him with new respect. Some asked about his music, curious about how he had learned to play so well. Others offered quiet apologies for their earlier behavior. Teachers took notice as well, recognizing the dedication and skill that Alex had shown. They encouraged him to participate in more performances and provided opportunities to further develop his musical talents. It was clear that the talent show had not only showcased Alex's abilities, but had also changed the way people saw him. Alex's life began to shift slowly but surely. Local musicians who had heard about his performance invited him to attend workshops and lessons. Community events began to ask for his participation, recognizing the unique talent that had captivated an entire auditorium. The boy who had once been mocked was now sought after for his musical skill. Each new opportunity was a chance to share his passion and continue growing as a musician. Despite the recognition, Alex remained humble, knowing that the true value of music lay in the connection it created, not in applause or praise. At home, Alex continued to practice daily. The small keyboard that had once been his only instrument was joined by a borrowed piano from a community center. Every note he played reminded him of the talent show, of the moment he had faced doubt and emerged triumphant. He practiced not just to perform again, but to refine his skills and express himself more fully through the music he loved. Each session was a reminder of the journey he had taken, the obstacles he had overcome, and the joy he found in creating melodies. His family noticed the changes too. They were proud of his achievements, but more than that, they admired his perseverance and humility. They could see how music had transformed his confidence and self-expression. Alex's siblings began to understand the importance of dedication and passion, seeing how one person's quiet commitment could earn respect and admiration. His parents encouraged him to continue, reminding him that talent paired with heart and effort could open doors to opportunities he might never have imagined. At school, Alex became a source of inspiration. Teachers used his story to encourage other students, showing that talent and dedication could triumph over doubt and mockery. The students who had laughed learned a valuable lesson in humility and the importance of seeing beyond appearances. They began to appreciate the quiet strengths of others, recognizing that every person has the potential to shine in their own way. Alex's performance became a reference point for what dedication, patience, and passion could achieve, and his influence extended beyond music into character and attitude. Alex himself remained grounded. He knew that recognition was fleeting if it was sought for the wrong reasons. His motivation was not fame or praise, but the love of music and the ability to share it with others. Every time he sat at the piano, he remembered the talent show, the initial doubt of the audience, and the transformation that music had created in the hearts of those who listened. He played with the same honesty and passion, knowing that each performance was a new opportunity to connect and communicate. As time passed, Alex's reputation as a talented pianist grew. Invitations to perform at community events, recitals, and local competitions became more frequent. His performances continued to captivate audiences, each one a testament to the dedication he had shown since childhood. The shy boy who had been overlooked and mocked had become a young musician admired not just for his skill, but for the authenticity and emotion he brought to every note. His music had the power to stop a room, to command attention, and to inspire change in the way people viewed others. Alex's story spread beyond his school and neighborhood. Local newspapers featured him, highlighting his journey from a quiet, overlooked boy to a respected young musician. Community members who had witnessed his performances shared the story with friends and family, emphasizing the lessons of perseverance, humility, and the courage to follow one's passion. Alex became a symbol of what could be achieved when talent is nurtured with dedication and heart, and when one does not let mockery or doubt stand in the way of pursuing what they love. Despite the recognition and opportunities, Alex never forgot the moment he had faced mockery on stage. It served as a reminder of the importance of patience, humility, and resilience. He continued to practice with dedication, always striving to improve and express himself fully through music. He understood that true success was measured not only by applause or recognition, but by the ability to touch hearts and inspire others. The music he played was a bridge between himself and the world, a way to communicate beyond words, and a source of joy and fulfillment that could never be taken away. Over time, Alex also became a mentor to younger students who shared his passion for music. He encouraged them to practice diligently, to persevere through challenges, and to play with emotion and authenticity. He shared his own experiences of facing doubt and mockery, showing them that talent combined with dedication and heart could overcome obstacles. Through mentoring, he continued to spread the lessons he had learned, helping others to find confidence and courage in their own abilities. Alex's journey also influenced the culture at his school. Teachers and students alike became more aware of the hidden talents of quiet or overlooked individuals. The environment shifted toward encouragement and support, recognizing that everyone has unique strengths that may not always be immediately visible. Alex's story became a testament to the transformative power of perseverance, skill, and authenticity, leaving a lasting impact on the community and inspiring a culture of respect and appreciation for true talent. Looking back, Alex could see how far he had come from the boy who had been mocked for his appearance and quiet demeanor. The talent show had been a turning point, a moment when his music had spoken louder than doubt and judgment. It had opened doors, changed perceptions, and taught valuable lessons to everyone who had witnessed it. Yet, for Alex, the most important outcome was the joy and fulfillment he felt in playing the piano and sharing his passion with others. His journey was not only about recognition, but about the power of music to connect, inspire, and transform. In the end, Alex's story was one of resilience, dedication, and heart. He had faced mockery, doubt, and challenges, yet he had remained true to himself and his passion. Through music, he had demonstrated that talent and effort could overcome judgment, that quiet determination could capture attention, and that authenticity could inspire change. The boy who had once been mocked had become a symbol of hope, perseverance, and the transformative power of following one's passion, leaving a legacy that would continue to inspire others for years to come.